Well, back in the 60s, one of the arguments that was made against integrating the workplace and schools, but particularly the workplace. I remember this very well. I lived in Lansing, Michigan, which was sort of an epicenter of this. It was the auto industry, but it was the periphery of the auto industry. My dad worked in a tool and die shop, and the union-run tool and die shop. No black people worked there. There were black people who worked on the line over at GM. Segregation was still legal. This was the early 60s. And the argument that was made by the Pat Buchanans of the world was, well, if you let those black people into the labor pool, it's going to drive down the price of labor. It's going to drive down wages for, all of us good working white people. I believe, I could be wrong, let's ask him, that Joe Hicks, conservative commentator, community activist, member of Project 21, and vice president of the Community Advocates, Inc., a privately funded LA-based think tank, nationalcenter.org, the website, that Joe wants to make the same argument about brown people from South and Central America. Do I have that right, Joe?
No, you don't, Tom.
Okay.
Here's
lay it on me.
I'm sorry?
Give me your argument.
Well, here's the difference. The example you decided of Lansing, Michigan, and white supremacists trying to make the argument that if you let black folks in.
Hey, George Wallace took the presidential nomination from Michigan in the Democratic Party in '68.
And that they would take good white folks' jobs, said the white supremacists. Here's the difference, Tom. Now we've got people that are coming over border against our border laws, and these aren't citizens. This isn't the issue of some Americans saying they're going to take other American citizens' jobs. This was a fight waged by segregationists and white supremacists.
Respectfully, Joe, in 1963, black people were not citizens in the United States. They couldn't vote in most parts of this country. They couldn't work in most parts of this country. They couldn't walk in and sit at a lunch counter in most parts of this country.
Black people were citizens, Tom, but
technically,
they were citizens in many parts of the country, and only Jim Crow laws prevented them from exercising that law, taken care of largely in 1965 by the Voting Rights Act. So they could vote. In many parts of the country, they could vote because they were citizens. It was only in the South that black people, by and large.
It was not only in the South.
I'm making the case that America was a racial nirvana for black folks even living in upstate New York, but it certainly was the case that black folks could vote in many parts of the country and were viewed as citizens except for those living under Jim Crow law.
Joe, the argument that you're making is that if we were to say to the millions of people, and the numbers vary depending on whose numbers you're using, but let's say it's 10 million, whatever. It was 6 million when Reagan did it, I guess. If we're going to say to them, okay, fine, here's a path to citizenship. It might take you 10 years. That's, I guess, the best estimate of it. But here's a path to citizenship, and in the meantime, you can work. It seems to me that your argument is that's going to dilute our labor force, which is going to drive down the cost of labor. Do I have that right?
It's in part the argument, but there's additional argumentation here in terms of a lot of poor black folks, as you know, and you've seen the data, that the unemployment and poverty rates of black folks is at abysmal levels. That black folks got hurt more than any other group in this country by the recent recession, depression that this country just suffered through. Black people are still not, poor entry-level black folks, I guess I should clarify that, have still not recovered from that. So you've got astronomical unemployment rates in many major cities. And what this pending amnesty does, or any amnesty does, is would legalize new folks to once again compete for jobs in areas where they're now being frankly outcompeted for, because you're not going to be able to, if you're a poor, low-skilled black American, you can't outcompete somebody who's willing to undercut, even get paid off the books. And how do you compete with that, Tom?
Joe, I got to tell you, in 63 and 64, I went with my dad. I went door to door for Barry Goldwater in '64. I was 13 years old, and my dad took me to John Birch Society meetings, to Republican Party meetings, and to union meetings. And over and over and over again, the message that I heard was, there's a lot of white people in Lansing, Michigan, and all over the country who are suffering. There's a lot of unemployment. We had in the early 60s, there was a small recession that happened during the Kennedy administration. Therefore, the possibility that these coming integration laws that Jack Kennedy is pushing for, his brother in particular is pushing for, that these things are going to be really, really dangerous. I mean, the Republicans were campaigning on this stuff, and what happened was, no, it wasn't really dangerous. And similarly with Hispanics, you've got people right now who are already in this country and they are working. It's not like they're going to take away the jobs of poor black people.
No,
they're already working, but they're working
point, Tom.
very much like black. Now, let me finish this sentence, Joe, and then you can have the rest of the segment. They're working very much like black people were in 1962 and 63 for less than the minimum wage, under circumstances where they know that they're at the whim of their employer. Their employer can fire them with no reason. They have basically no recourse, no legal rights. And so they're being exploited by employers. If we make those people legal, their wages will go up, and that will level the playing field between them and African Americans, and that will lead to plus it'll stimulate the economy because you got more job creators, more people who actually spend all of their paychecks putting money into the economy, creating more demand. It will stimulate the economy, and it'll raise wages and open up jobs for African Americans.
And many of the people, if you talk, that are here already, who are illegal, but still here, as some people like to say, living in the shadows, who are out competing because they're often working for levels of wages that black folks simply won't work for because they're citizens and they're aware of things like, the wage standard, you can only pay people at a certain level and above. There's safety standards you got to comply with. I'd like to bring you here to Los Angeles, take you out on any construction site in South Los Angeles, where many black people still live. You can't find a black face working on that job site, Tom, because you get illegal labor that will undercut their ability to compete.
And that's because from the point of view of the employer, they would much rather have
able to import. Where you said you told me I was going to get all the rest of the time.
All right.
But you're in favor of importing even more poverty in terms of Guatemalan and Salvadorian kids who are coming here, along with
that's a whole different
Mexican
issue,
labor.
Joe. That's a whole different issue.
You're fine with importing additional poverty into areas that are already poverty-stricken with people that are unable to work in their own communities in many cases. That makes no sense. All the studies show that the black entry-level wages or labor has already been impacted by the levels of illegal immigration in this country, and it's not some right-wing think tanks doing this.
No, I am agreeing with you. We have an illegal employer problem in the United States. Ronald Reagan overtly stopped the policy that had been enforced by every president before him since the 30s of throwing white rich employers into jail if they hired people who were not citizens. Reagan stopped that.
And you and I have common ground on that, Tom.
Okay, and that created a giant magnet to draw people into this country.
Of course.
But giving those people the right to work will have the same effect that African Americans having the right to work in the 60s and starting to integrate unions.
Why should a Guatemalan have a right to work in America, Tom? Explain that.
When that Guatemalan becomes a U.S. citizen, they should have the right to work in the United States.
But people are not, many of those people, in fact, most of them are not citizens yet. Fine, if they want to go through the process and apply to become a citizen, we're going to welcome with open arms. I tell you, America has always been a place that welcomes people that does things the right way. Apply for citizenship, even if you're here legally. Go in, apply for citizenship, become a citizen. I'm all for that. That's fine.
You're singing the Democrats' song then. That's the comprehensive immigration reform that John Boehner's refusing to bring to a vote in the House of Representatives. Joe Hicks. You can read all about it at nationalcenter.org. Thanks, Joe.
All right.